everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our second webinar organized by WEXA, the Women's Action Campaign South Africa. And my name is Annika Larsen. I'm a journalist, and I'll be moderating this session for you. This is also, the organizers feel, not only the second webinar that has been hosted by them, but also a call to action, because you will be asked to sign a petition if you so wish, which is going to be attached at the bottom of the chat box after the webinar. So we now know what happened on October the 7th in Israel, but we've still had to rely on a lot of misinformation and media reports that didn't get the information firsthand. And we, and I hope all of you, are really here today to be informed. And today we are fortunate to have with us what I believe are two real warriors for those women and men who made it out of October the 7th alive. They are women who are extremely courageous, but they are also on the front line. And they're going to tell us firsthand not only the horror that has confronted them, but also the damage that they have witnessed and the way forward, and just how difficult it is to find justice for all the victims of extreme sexual violence, mutilation, and in so many of those instances, death. Let me introduce you then to Advocate Mirit Ben-Meir, or Ben-Meir. Mirit is a former prosecutor of 15 years, and she's now an Israeli police chief superintendent. She's been tasked with handling the barrage of media requests and taking media to the site of the festival and many of the crime scenes of what happened on October the 7th and the ongoing investigation. Mirit Ben-Meir, thank you so much for joining us. And we also have another lawyer in training, by training, Advocate Carmit Klar-Chalamish. She's the head of research at Rape Crisis Israel, which has 9 centers. And both women's lives have been irrevocably changed as they've been tasked with dealing with the trauma of those survivors and the aftermath. So we welcome both of you, extremely passionate and dedicated professionals. And thank you, of course, for taking your job so seriously, fighting for these women to find whatever justice can possibly be found, and of course talking to us today. So let's start with you, Carmit, from Rape Crisis. You have done a very detailed report, and it's a report that is probably the best information center that we have, because you have dealt with so many of those survivors. Over to you, Carmit.
Yeah, thank you, Annika, for hosting me and making it possible to talk about it. I will show a short presentation and then we can talk, or Mirit, I guess Mirit will talk after me. Just want to share it. Okay. So, just a moment. So I'm from the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel, which is an NGO. We are not funded by the Israeli government, just by donation. We have in Israel 9 rape crisis centers. The local rape crisis centers supply helping services like helping victim survivors, accompany the criminal justice system, conducting education workshops, and some local help that they can give. While the association works in the national level, we are working with policymakers, we promote legislation, we work with the media, and we also conduct some researches from time to time. So we are going back to October 7th. We woke up to a shrieking siren, and we went in and out the shelters in our pajamas. And when we came out of the safe rooms, we turned on the television and we couldn't believe what we saw there. It was like a horror movie, but only real and live. I want to show you a short movie of the Nova Festival party so we can...
אבא, יש מלא מתים, תשלח משטרה לפה.
מתים?
Hello everyone in Israel. I'm really excited to announce my performance.
Oh my God!
תראו שאהבנו אתכם. זה לא מצחיק אותי, אני עומדת לכם.
ירו במישהי פה. לא!
אמא, אבא, אני אוהב אתכם.
Everything's in the mind.
יובלי, לנשום עמוק, להתחבא, להיות פני מתה. תהי מתה. יובלי, תהי מתה.
Unbelievable. And it's important to say that I'm going to talk about hard things, sometimes impossible. So it was October 7th, October 8th, and we understood we are facing a situation we'd never met before. We usually in the rape crisis centers and in the association deal with sexual harassment, incest, date rapes, things like that. And we never met these kind of things. So we understood that this is a new thing to us. And the first thing we did is to seek knowledge. We contacted experts worldwide and imported knowledge to professionals in Israel. We met women from Ukraine and the former Yugoslavia, and we understood that it may take some time for the survivors to contact us. While at the same time, a lot of information came to us by family members or physicians or people, first responders who met the victims and wanted to talk about what they saw. So we started gathering the information, and we wanted to know what happened. We understood that this is our mission, to gather all the information and try to understand to see the big picture. And we did this report. It was published on February, and I will talk a little bit about it. We started to gather the information. As I said, it was bits and pieces of information, and then we wrote it. It includes official information, publication in the media, interviews, and some confidential information that I cannot talk about. But it's important for me to say that we didn't include any social media or videos or picture because we didn't know if it's true or not. You know, we are living in an AI era, so I don't know what's true and what's not. We identified 4 arenas. The first one is a Nova Festival party. The second one is private homes in the kibbutzim and places near Gaza. The third one is IDF bases, and the fourth one is captivity. We identified patterns. The same thing happened in different places. So we defined 2 categories. The first one is war rape practices. Those are patterns of action used to perpetrate sexual assault during an armed conflict. And the second one is sadistic practices. This is practices characterized by brutal, demonstrative features aimed to intensifying the degradation and terror of sexual assault. I'm going to describe them shortly with some examples. Okay, so the first category is war rape practices. The first one is systematic use of brutal violence to commit rape. One of the survivors of the Nova Festival party described how she saw from her hiding place a large group of Hamas terrorists passing injured women between them. She saw a young woman being pulled by one terrorist from her hair while another terrorist was penetrating her. Each time the woman resisted, the terrorist stabbed her in the back. The second one is multiple abuser or gang rape, the sexual assaults and acts of rape were committed by several participants as well as in the presence of other witnesses. As some eyewitness said, they bent someone over. I realized he was raping her and passing her to someone else, also in uniform. The third one is rape in the presence of family members or community members. In some cases, the sexual abuse took place in front of family members or friends who were forced to watch the sexual abuse under threat to the victim's life or their own life, without the ability of acting to stop it. We know some cases of family members who saw their beloved one being raped in front of their eyes. The next one is sexual offenses of males. It is very important to say that also males had been abused during this attack. A witness who was rescued from the nature party described how she saw bodies of men whose genitals had been cut off. And the last one of this category is execution during or after the rape. Eyewitness in the Nova Festival party described cases in which the terrorist shot the victims in the head during the rape or immediately after, and we know that a lot of bodies got to Shura base after they had been raped and dead. So the next category is the sadistic practices. This is going to be much harder. And so the first one is biting and tying. And the first responders who came to the arena talked about a lot of bodies that were found bound and gagged and sometimes even tied to each other. So the next one is mutilation and destruction of genital organs. Eyewitnesses described a picture of deliberate harm to the genital organs of both men and women, including, among other things, direct and targeted shooting, mutilation of organs, and destruction and burning of sexual and intimate organs. The next one is insertion of weapons in intimate areas. Another form of assault included the insertion of weapons into genital organs, nails, knives, and other kinds of weapons. And the last one is destruction and mutilation of the body. In many cases, alongside the sexual assault, deliberate mutilation of body occurred, including facial mutilation, burning, and decapitation. Many bodies were found with detached heads, making the identification of the victims more difficult. It took a lot of time to identify a lot of the bodies. One of the survivors described a rape incident where the terrorists cut off the victim's breasts, following by cutting her face. It's important to say that it wasn't a sporadic incident, it was an Islamic attack. And the report got a lot of attention all over the world. And we also talked about it in a lot of places all over the world. I just got back from Vienna a few days ago. We are now in the second phase of this report, and we are keeping analyzing the information we have and writing about it. And
I don't want to take a shower, please.
I want to finish with a movie of Amit Sosana. She is a hostage that was released, and she's talking about the sexual abuse she had gone through. So it's better to listen to her.
So one day, Muhammad came and gave me women's sanitary pads. He said, dam. When you get your period, after that, you'll take a shower and you'll wash your clothes. And he kept repeating that every couple of times a day. That immediately made me feel creepy. I felt really scared, like I knew that something is about to happen. And the period was just for one day, but I fooled him to think that the period is continuing. So I remember going to the toilet, folding the pads really tight so he won't see that there's no blood. So I did it for about a week until I could not lie anymore. And he said, oh, come on, go take a shower. I told him, no, I don't want to. The water is cold. I don't want to take a shower. Please, I don't want to take a shower. And he said, no, no, don't worry. Don't worry. He untied me and took me to the kitchen and showed me a pot sitting on the stove. And I remember thinking, Amit, now is the moment. Something, what you thought about is going to happen. I bent down in the bathtub like this, so I could like cover myself up, taking the warm water from the pot and like put it in over my head. And for 1 second, I completely forgot about everything. I just really enjoyed the warm water on my face. And then I remember hearing him saying, quickly, Amit, quickly, quickly. And then I remember I turned around. He was standing with his gun, and the gun was pointed out at me, and he was huffing and breathing heavily, and he had a face like a monster, like a beast, like this. So I stood up and held a blanket, a small blanket, to cover myself, and he came towards me and just pointed the gun really hard at my forehead, screaming at me, take it off, and punching me, until I could not hold the towel anymore. And he started touching me, and I resisted, and then he dragged me to the bedroom. And then he forced me to commit a sexual act on him. And I remember the entire time I was like thinking, Amit, okay, you knew it's gonna happen. It's really happening. I said to myself, okay, you can handle this. You just want to survive. You need to survive. Your mom, your family is waiting. I just concentrated on that instead of what's really going on. And when he was finished, he went to clean himself up. I got dressed, covered myself up, and I was crying. He came in and he told me, I'm good, Amit, right? I'm good? No, I'm no good. No, I'm good. I'm your friend, right? I remember I could not look at him. I looked away. And then he got really mad. He closed the door, and I was in that room in complete darkness. Then he came in again and asked me, food? Food? I'm good, right? I'm good. Food? And I realized that if I say no, he's gonna punish me again. So I said, yeah, food. And that's the worst part, that I'm completely dependent on him, completely dependent on the guy who just forced me to do what he forced me to do.
She's very brave. So I want to thank you for listening to me. I know it wasn't easy, but it's very important. And I also feel that I speak on behalf of those who cannot speak anymore and delivering the information to you. Thank you. I will stop it.
Carmit, thank you so much. Just for those of you watching who would like to ask Carmit questions at the end of the session, please could you post those questions in the chat. But Carmit, a question I have for you is twofold. One is, how long did it take for the survivors of rape and sexual assault to come forward? And if you could just explain to us, please, the Mirit code, which guides professionals on how to collect evidence from survivors. Thank you so much.
So the first answer, that as far as I know, the only victim who stepped forward is Amit Susana. And Mirit, you can add. And I think she did it to promote the release of other hostages. I don't know if she will do it in other case. And the Mirit code is a code that guides us how to talk to victim survivors that came back and how to make them feel safe and honor them. It's a big thing. I cannot do it in a few words, but it's very important to know this code and to act by this code.
And Carmit, did people start slowly coming forward to Rape Crisis Association counselors, or was it quite a flurried process? And if so, is there any stigma in Israel, like there is here, I still think, with regards to receiving help and being open about being a survivor of sexual assault and rape?
We are not one of our principles is not talking about the people that connected us, so I cannot talk about it. But I think there is a small stigma yet, because we are still talking about sex offense, and we didn't break this thing of stigma, but I hope that our society will hug them and hug them with honor and let them live their lives and honor them. That's all. Because at the beginning, people looked for the victims and wanted to find them and ask them questions. And we worked a lot that the society will leave them alone. So we have some other problems to deal with, but I hope we will deal them with honor and give them the space and time to heal and recover from what they have been through.
You collated a lot of evidence into a report, which has really become one of the most comprehensive documents with regards to what happened on October the 7th from a sexual assault and rape point of view. How did you go about gathering that evidence, considering you were not only dealing with survivors, but bodies as well?
We got a lot of information, as I said, from professionals and first responders and people that contacted us. And as I said, I have some confidential information that I cannot talk about, but it came to our rape crisis center. So I'm trying to do it both, to help them while protecting them and also delivering the information, because I think it's very important the world will know and people will know what happened to us on October 7th. So we tried to fix it together, and it wasn't easy because we thought about it a lot, about giving them the space and not making them talk while wanting the world to know. And even for the history, we wanted it to be written that those things happened here in Israel. So it's a complicated work, but we're doing our best.
Last question from me, Carmit. Rape is generally about anger, violence, hatred. It's often misunderstood. In the context of war, what have you found was the main reason for it? Was it to really attack the worst, very worst fears of both men and women all over the world?
I think it's early to say, but we know that rape is a weapon of war. We know it. And I think it's mainly violence or trying to dominate and frighten everyone. We also saw the videos and a lot of talking about it. And I think that from October 7th, we all have a new script for what is rape. We have like a new thing to be afraid from. Being raped in our homes and I don't know, I think it's too early to say. It will take some time for us to figure it out. But it's a weapon. It's a weapon they used, like guns and taking people as hostages. They also raped and mutilated and burned people. So it's the same thing, to destroy us, to make us vanish.
Thank you so much, Carmit. And the report by Carmit, I'll ask for that to be posted in the chat. If you can read it, it's a really important document, especially amongst the rampant denialism that we've seen across the world, that these incidents happened. And I'm going to go now to Mirit Ben Mayor, who is from the Israeli police and was a prosecutor for 15 years and knows all about the chain of evidence and how the burden of proof is so often on the victim. Mirit, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start from the very beginning. You woke up on October the 7th, 2023, and your life has never been the same again. Talk us through that, please.
Okay, so good evening to all of you in South Africa, and thank you for being here with us. And as you said, Angie, 7th of October is a new life. Since then, our lives, all of our lives have changed. I woke up, I was on a vacation with my family down south in Eilat. It's a city very, very in the very southern spot in Israel, like Cape Town for you guys. And my husband woke me up and told me that friends and family are trying to understand, are calling us to understand what's going on. What is this missile attack all over Israel almost? In Eilat, there were no missiles, but all over Israel there were. And I thought he was, I thought I was dreaming, or maybe he was dreaming. But as I turned on the TV and saw the reports and took my phone and saw how all the police officers were called to arrive as soon as possible, each one to the place he's working at, I understood that something different is happening. We are used to missile attacks. We are used to go into the safe room in a lot of the cities in Israel. But here it was understood that something else is happening. So as a police officer, I told my family, you guys are staying here in Eilat. I'm getting into my car and I'm driving towards the base, which is in Jerusalem. My husband asked me not to go because we all understood that there were terrorists all over on the way, and my way was crossing the area where the terrorists were, but I had to go. There's no other chance. There's no other way. I got in my car, I drove like crazy, and I actually literally felt that we're in a war. And not only myself, not only me, we all understood that we're under a massive attack. We quickly, as the police officers, and not only police officers, anyone who worked in the police, who lived around that area, the southern area of Israel, where most of the attack took place, just got out of their houses and used their whatever guns they held in order to block the terrorists from continuing up to other parts and to try and save many lives. And I want you to understand and try to realize, as you saw in the movie that Carmit showed you, the first one, you saw the party area where thousands of youngsters who came to this festival and had, the time of their lives, just fled for their lives, tried to run away from the thousands of terrorists who just came into their area surprisingly. And if you saw that, imagine 20 other sites simultaneously with thousands of terrorists running into our country with artillery, with the grenade, with the shotguns, with bombs, and just getting into either the party, the houses, the bases, a police station, taking hostages inside the police station, taking hostages inside the houses of people who lived in the kibbutzim. And kibbutz is a place where it's like the countryside. It's all pastoralic. It's all quiet, and all of a sudden, imagine yourself in your house, waking up with terrorists shooting inside your house, shooting your husband or your wife, killing your children, burning the houses while people are inside. Living people are inside. Some of them were cuffed, as Carmit said. And all that Carmit said is based on the on all the information she collected and her people collected, and it adds up to a very, very clear picture. We as police officers also saw that picture with our own eyes, while police officers, as I said, got into houses and tried to rescue kids, elders, families out of their houses. In the party, police officers tried to rescued a lot of people, but unfortunately 364 people who came to celebrate were murdered in the party. All in all, over 1,400 people, innocent people, by the way, not only Jews, not only Israelis, but from different countries, from different religions, Muslims, Christians, and more, were murdered that day. So before I go into the police work, I'll tell you that the fact that there are so many people and so many countries that still deny the fact that we were under a brutal terror attack, which has never been seen here, and I'm not sure that has ever been seen anywhere in the world. The brutality, the huge amount of terrorists who came in with a very, very clear plan, with a very, very organized, with a pattern action. I don't think that anyone can deny if people will know the real facts. Israeli police actually understood very quickly that we have a massive attack, and that there are, firstly we thought we had tens of people murdered, then we understood there are hundreds, and then we understood that the numbers are just adding and adding and adding. We understood that because we were seeing, everyone was actually understanding that families were losing touch with their dear ones. They had no idea where their dear ones are, if they're alive, if they're hiding, if they were maybe kidnapped. We had no idea what is going on. And therefore, we quickly opened a family center, basically out of scratch, So the families will have an address where, to come to or to call to bring some piece of clothes or something that we could take DNA from that sample in order to eventually try and identify their dear ones if they are murdered or if they're injured. So that was the first thing we did. Imagine that morning it started, and then about 8 or 9 p.m. we had so many family members and friends coming to us and seeking for help because they had no idea, as I said, what happened. And at the same time, all of us here in Israel understood that something very, very brutal happened, because not only because we had those families looking for their dear ones, but also because the terrorists themselves pictured and videoed their actions during their while taking them, while burning houses, while shooting heads, while kidnapping. They were filming themselves with live view and putting all their videos, all the visuals up to the net, proudly telling their families, look, Dad, I have Jews with me. Look, I killed 10. So really try to imagine a mother or a father looking at the net and seeing their daughter or their son or their father or mother shot and kidnapped on a motorcycle to Gaza, or hiding or trying to, begging for their lives and then being shot. Everything was videoed. Not everything, but a lot of their actions were videos. That is a part of their plan and a part of the psychological war that is working, that is being led side by side with the physical war. So, as I said, we opened up that family center. We understood, because of all the visuals, that the situation is very, very bad. And also we understood that most of the places were either burning with a lot of bodies there. We understood that from survivors and from first responders. We understood that from eyewitnesses. We understood from those officers, as I said, and from the visuals. And by the way, we have collected, since the 7th of October, over 500,000 visuals from cameras, either of the terrorists themselves and from the street cameras, etc. So, as I said, our first mission was to block the terrorists from continuing and from murdering more and more people. Our second mission was to open up quickly the family center. And our third mission was the identification of the bodies. Now, please understand that the first few days, many terrorists were still on ground, living terrorists, not dead terrorists. We're still on ground. We were still fighting on ground. We were still under missile attack, and hundreds of bodies spread all over. Some of them of the terrorists, some of them of the innocent civilians, some in the houses, and some in the party area, some on the roads. So the collection of the bodies was not easy, not physically and not mentally, because those who collected the bodies saw bodies in horrific situations. I will read some of the parts of the evidence that we have, just to let you understand. And so the bodies were collected and put into bags and on trucks, and were taken to the place called Shura, which Carmit mentioned. That was the place, the identification center. Almost all those people who are dealing in all the investigators and many of the CAI people in Israel were in Shura for a few months, trying to identify as quickly but as precise those bodies who came in terrible situations. And what we saw there, actually the bodies were talking. Some of the bodies were shot in the head, some of them in the genitals. We have first responders who saw in the houses as well, men and women shot in the genitals. In the identification center, we saw burned bodies. Some of the bodies could not be identified because of the bad situation, and also because of the time that went by. As I said, we had so many hundreds of bodies that came in. So by the time we got to the third truck, the situation of the body was worse and worse and worse. Some of the bodies were burnt. So the bodies connected to each other, like two bodies connected to each other, because they were burnt. So this mission told us how brutal the actions were, but not only the identification mission told us that. And here I'm coming to our fourth mission, which is the national investigation, which puts up together all that I've been telling you now in order to bring justice for the victims, for the ones who were murdered, for the ones who were sexually assaulted, for the ones who were kidnapped, and for their families. You must understand, we are a democratic country, and we have a very, very clear judicial system. We have we are not judging those terrorists in the field. We will be judging them in court. We will be bringing them to court. We are not taking barbaric actions. We are taking lawful actions in order to collect the evidence precisely, as precise as we can, even though, as I said, this chaotic situation makes it very difficult. And let me tell you that the Israeli police decided that this national investigation will be held by our Israeli FBI. It's called Lahav 433. And I can tell you that the investigators who are working in this unit are the best investigators which were collected from all over all over the police during the years. And what they've been doing for the last few months is collecting and understanding the evidence in order to put, as I said, the most precise evidential picture, because we know the facts. We know that brutal actions were taken, but we also need to take these facts and translate them into legal facts. And therefore, this FBI unit, Lahav 433, has been working tirelessly, collecting and putting up the evidence. And what we've been seeing from the collection of these evidence and from investigating the terrorists themselves, we have evidence, clear evidence, that, as Carmit said, while talking factually, we are talking evidentially and saying that each and every one of the terrorists who took place in this attack and took place in these atrocities, they all knew exactly what they are coming to. It was planned. It was organized. It was very systematic. I told you, we had the party and we had 20 different sites. These actions took place in all the different sites systematically. They came with clear instructions. We know that from the evidence we found while arresting these terrorists, and also while we are inside Gaza, working there, fighting there. We have so much evidence that were collected from Gaza. We found maps and directions and plans. And as I said, the terrorists themselves tell us that. And by the way, as a former prosecutor, I've interrogated many people in court, and many times, we see people that regret and that look downward and feel uncomfortable with what they have done. These terrorists, I can tell you, they do not regret. they're actually quite proud of what they did, including the sexual atrocities. And I can tell you that, as I said, they received, and they tell us that they received clear instructions to murder, to hurt, to kidnap, and also to dirty them, one of them told us. Dirty them? We asked him, what do you mean? And he said, to rape them. We have, regarding the sexual atrocities, we have accumulating evidence that are adding up and adding up. And as Carmit said, and I'm also saying that, the evidence regarding rape are very, very difficult to collect, because unlike regular rape cases in which a victim might come and tell us in the police that unfortunately she was raped, and we would take her, get forensics from her body, and take different actions in order to collect evidence and prove and bring the attacker to court. Here, in this case, there are hardly any victims alive. So we hear from, not from many, and we do have more than one, but not very many victims, rape victims have come up and talked yet. But we do have eyewitnesses who saw and took us back to the spot and showed us exactly where it took place. And we also found more evidence in that certain spot that adds up to the eyewitnesses. We have other witnesses who saw, as I said, in the different houses, people cuffed, their genitals shot or cut. So we are adding up all these evidence, and we are very, we still have a lot of work. We are very patient, because we know that regarding the sexual victims, the sexual actions victims, they need their time. And not only them, also the ones who were not attacked but could come and tell us, most of them are not back to life. Their lives have changed. You asked me while we started what my life looks like after the 7th of October. I can tell you that, as I said, it has changed very much. But those who were there, who lost their friends, who saw atrocities in front of their faces, and also the ones who were held in Gaza and came back, and the ones who lost their families, I cannot imagine what their lives look like now, how they can, go on with their lives. I really don't know. And also, I don't know how our police officers who we've lost about 60 of our friends while fighting there. They fought for all of us. but their friends have to go on living without them and their families. So life has really changed here in Israel. And before I read just a few sentences from the evidence, I want to tell you that what I've been doing with many others here in Israel, we've been trying to do everything in order to let the world know what happened here and talk to the press. Even I must tell you that in the first 2 months, I spoke a few times with the South African press, and the press were very interested to hear at first. I really hope that after this meeting, some of you will, we have 190 people here. I really hope that you will bring up the subject and tell your friends, your family, influencers, tell them what we've been going through. We did not choose this war. We really did not choose this war. We did not choose to lose so many youngsters and to lose so many families, to see, like families just vanished. So we need you to be our voice. And let me just read and then I will end, if that's okay, Angie.
That's fine, Mirit. We're actually going to allow ourselves, with your grace, a little bit of overtime, just because we have so many questions and it's a rare opportunity to get the two of you on together. So if you could just read the quotes, and then we'll go to questions. So we may not end exactly at 6:30 our time, but a little bit on.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me just read this. A survivor from the Nova Festival testified what he saw. Girls without any clothes on, without tops, without underwear, people cut in half, butchered. There were girls with a broken pelvis. Their legs were spread wide apart in a split. A police officer testified. I couldn't drive on the road because there was a baby cradle full of blood on the road. A baby that was outside his cradle and a naked woman lying next to the baby's body. She was naked, badly injured, bullets in her body. And the last one that I will read. A rescuer that arrived to a house in kibbutz said, inside the shower, there was a body of a cuffed woman. She was without any underwear. The body was in the corner and her hands were tied. I'll end with this.
Mirit, thank you so much, and Carmit too. Some of the questions, and this is one for you, Mirit, is how long there were 20 crime scenes, let's call them, and they were in largely rural areas, or they weren't highly dense urbanized areas. How long did it take for the authorities to actually reach those sites and get help for the people who were victims of the attacks?
Well, it's a very good question. I can say that the police was really the first one who actually arrived, because as I said, many of our officers live in those areas, and so they just came out of their houses and fought basically with whatever they had, and some special units from the police and the IDF or the security organizations. Special units did arrive quite quickly, but unfortunately the IDF, it took more time, took some hours before they understood or they came in. And let me just tell you that the situation was very, very difficult, because, as I said, thousands of terrorists came in, thousands of them. So, and they were in an area in which civilians were with them. So I think that the IDF, I'm not their spokesperson, but could not really take actions, from the air or something like that, because the terrorists were with the civilians. So we had to be very, very careful. But yes, our those poor people who were there were quite alone for a few hours. Yep.
Then also the collection of DNA evidence is so crucial in cases like this. But it sounds as if the scenes, all the crime scenes, especially Nova, were absolutely chaotic. There were so many bodies to deal with, and time really is of the essence. I presume a lot of the survivors needed to get hospitalized as soon as possible. How successful were you, or have you been in being able to collect those DNA samples and make sure that the chain of evidence is kept intact ahead of possible prosecutions?
So, as I said, regarding the collection of the DNA, was mostly for the identification of the bodies. Okay, we needed to collect in order to identify and to add up and compare DNA from what we received from the families and from what we collected from the bodies, in order to prove sexual atrocities. It was so impossible. We did not do that. We did not collect DNA from hundreds of bodies, from the genitals, etc., because the bodies were in such a terrible situation. So we did not do that. And our main mission was the identification. We could not try to imagine that, you see, some of the people were identified only by taking DNA from a hand, because we did not see the rest of the body. The rest of the body was burned or was cut off and thrown somewhere. Some of the bodies, their heads were cut off. And so this was the reason for collecting the DNA. But in order to indict those people, those criminals, those terrorists, we are adding up evidence from other sources, not only from not necessarily from the forensic area, but from the visuals, from the eyewitnesses, and from what we hear from the terrorists themselves. This is why it's very, very, very difficult, but still we are doing all that's possible in order to bring all of the terrorists. They will all be brought to court for their part in this attack, for the planning, for the arriving, etc., etc., for the murder. Definitely, some of them will be also indicted for sexual atrocities. Yes, we will do it.
Then a question from one of the viewers is, what about pregnancies of the rape victims from October the 7th, released hostages and hostages still in captivity?
This is for me, Annika.
I think it's for
whoever
both
can
of us,
answer
but I
that.
think
It's a tricky one.
The answer is
Yeah.
probably the same answer, that we're definitely not going to talk about the privacy of these victims, right, Carmit?
Yes, and we can say that we hope they will come home soon, and so we can take care of them.
I suppose what the viewers really wanting to know is, you know, was there, I suppose they had to be HIV tested, they had to have a rape kit done, and pregnancy is one of the possibilities that those survivors who made it, who aren't just being kept hostage now, but who made it to hospital and made it out alive, would have to be something that they had to consider, which is, of course, just an extra trauma.
Yeah, I can agree with you, but as Mirit said, we cannot talk about their things.
Fair enough.
It's private. Yeah, but they are being the government and the Israeli society is taking care of them. I can say it for sure that they get the best treatment.
Let me also say something about the rape kits. You said something about the rape kit. Let me just make sure that everyone understands and knows that a rape kit is relevant only for about 48 hours after the rape takes place itself. So it's not really relevant.
Thank you. That's really important. A question for Advocate Mayor. Some believe the interrogation of terrorists can't be reliable because of the brutal interrogation tactics or torture on those that are suspects. Can Mirit clarify how these testimonies were obtained from those arrested?
Let me just say that each and every one of the investigations and the interrogations is being videoed. So we are not used to use, as I said, we are not barbaric, and we do not do brutal. We do not take brutal actions, not on the terrorists and not on other others who are being interrogated here in Israel. Must tell you that it's very difficult, because we know how sorrow they made to so many of the innocent people, how many children were left without parents, and how many wives buried their husbands, or vice versa. So it's very difficult. But as I said, we are not bringing those terrorists to a court on a field. We're taking them to a real court, and we have a law that we're obliged to follow.
Two more questions, if I may. One is a question for Carmit. What is next for the Rape Crisis Association centers? Will you be providing support for the hostages that we pray will return?
So, of course, we will give them support. And as I said, the Israeli government also gives support and take care of them. And we are dealing these days We are thinking about the day after the war. We hope it will end soon. So we are trying to find ways to achieve justice to the victim survivors and also the Israeli community at large. We are thinking about practices of transitional justice and things like that. And we are trying to help the Israeli community and our society to heal, to promote, to look forward from these atrocities. This what we are doing these days.
I'm going to close with one more question for both of you, but before I do, just a reminder that in the chat are several documents such as Carmit's report and Rape Crisis's report on what happened on October the 7th with regard to the systematic sexual violence, barbarism, sadistic kind of torture. And there is also a petition for signing, if you wish to, from Wexa to the South African government, asking them to condemn sexual violence of every kind, especially what happened on October the 7th. But of course, it's something that plagues this country on a daily, minute-by-minute basis. So that petition is there. And any questions that you may have can be directed to Angie Richardson. Her details will be in the chat, and she will forward those questions to Mirit and Carmit. And then just a final question for both of you, please. And it's from me as a journalist. So many civilians and journalists have said, you know, this is an IDF propaganda story. A lot of this is fake news. The fact that women's breasts were cut off and thrown around like footballs, that nails and grenades were inserted into their genitals, that the most sadistic and barbaric kind of torture that one could not even really conceivably imagine took place is fake news. What would be your responses to that, having seen what you have seen?
So I will start. I really wish this was true. It was fake news, because it's so true. It's our life. We met people who saw it, saw pictures of things that had happened. So I cannot understand that people are talking like that. I can understand that everything is kind of politicized, but I talk to people, and I'm sure Mirit also, and I saw the pictures, so I know it's true. But you can also say that it's not true and it's propaganda. It makes me sorry, but I know we are living it. This is our lives. It's not like talking about something that happened far away. We are living it every day from morning to night. So I can just try to talk and to tell people what I explored. That's it. Mirit?
Thank you. Mirit?
I really wish it was fake, really, because our lives are not the same. We have children inside of Gaza, and nobody wants this war. We do not want this war. We did not want this war. The people of Gaza, and I'm not talking about the Hamas and their people, but some of the people who really, there are people who really want to live peacefully. So I feel sorry for them too. But I saw the places. I went there tens of times with a journalist. They saw, they smelled, they felt, they cried. We all met. parents whose children were murdered in the next room. My friends who dealt physically with the bodies, they're not the same as they were before. So what I want to ask you from here is, you can choose either to believe or not. Think about it, that there's no logic in making up such a horror movie. It's not a movie, it's a reality. And think about those 120 people who are still held captive in Gaza. And please help us to bring them back home as quickly as possible, because we don't want them to die there. We do not want them to go through what Amit Sosna went through. Thank you very much.
To both of you, thank you so much for your courage. And I know you feel it's probably a calling, and so that it's the work you do is your job, but it is courageous, and it takes a lot of sleepless nights and pain that you have to deal with yourselves. So thank you not only for doing the work you do, but for spreading the message on behalf of those who cannot speak for themselves anymore because of the way they were executed. And also thank you to AXA for organizing this. It's a small group of women, but they are powerhouses. And thank you so much to them. Any questions, all the details you need are in the chat. The petition, please sign it if you so wish to. And if you can read the Rape Crisis Association report, it is absolutely worthwhile. I read it and it changed so much of what I knew about October the 7th. So with that, thank you, everybody. We wrap up. Sorry we went over time, but we felt it was worthwhile. Good luck and good night.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.